Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, and welcome to Pangolin, the Conservation Podcast. The show dedicated to exploring and amplifying the world's underappreciated conservation stories. The stories that inspire me, and I hope will inspire you too. I'm your host, Jack Baker, and today I am joined once again by Felix Rowan-Young, a member of the Chester Zoo Youth Board. He is here to tell us all about the Youth Board and its fantastic work, as well as some of the weird and wonderful creatures of Chester Zoo. Felix is a huge fan of the bizarre and underappreciated, so we take the time to chat about some of the strangest animals I've ever heard of. The Lake Titicaca Frog, emerald Jewel Wasps, Caecilians, Tequila Split Fins, Achoques Salamanders, and Partula Snails. Now, trust me when I say, it does not get much stranger than this. Also, don't forget that this is the second part of a two-part special. And last week, Felix was here discussing the incredible world of forest schools. So, once you're done here, make sure and also check that out if you haven't already. Now, without further ado, let's get started. But I think what we'll transition into now is a little chat about the Chester Zoo Youth Board, because I wanted to make the time to ask you about that as well. And yeah, so for anyone who maybe didn't listen to the episode with Connor, alongside all of your other forest school endeavours, you mentioned at the start, were the chair of the Chester Zoo Youth Board, now in a different role. So I wondered, could you remind the listeners what the Chester Zoo Youth Board is, and maybe tell them a little bit about your role on it?
Can we just timestamp where Connor talks about it? Because I feel like he probably will explain it a lot better than me. So the Chester Zoo Youth Board, we were put together in March 2020. And so we've been around for over 2 years now. And I was one of the original members. And we're a group of 13. I have to remember because of course it changes, but we can have maximum 14 members. So we're a group of young people aged between 18 and 25, 26, depending on how it falls. And we work closely with the directors and trustees and senior management at the zoo to help engage with projects that are going to help with engagement of young people aged 12 to 25, as that demographic the zoo identified was the smallest that was either visiting the zoo on site or that was they were reaching in in any capacity. So they were pretty good in thinking, actually we can't solve this. Let's have actual young people get involved. So we were brought in, all sort of fresh-faced and thinking, yes, we're going to change the world. And we've been working away to just have more opportunities for young people who maybe are interested in conservation or want to get involved, or maybe who aren't, are looking at completely different careers. And we have that on the board. I'm probably the most conservation-y zoo person there. And which is great because everyone brings in that, it's that diversity of thought and ideas. We've got a few vets. Connor is probably the second, if not tied with me as the most zoo person. and he's doing the education work at Bristol. We have people in fundraising and finance, in their gap year. We've got farmers, we've got it all. And and it's really helped us to look at the zoo. Some of us who maybe aren't even members, haven't visited before, and they're able to see it with from a new perspective and say, well, why aren't you doing this? And well, not as not as confrontational as that, of like, oh, here's a gap, here's something we can look at, and from that we are almost an advisory panel where we will then give recommendations that get approved by trustees or executives depending on the nature of them, and then they are and then it's like away, and the zoo team will go and do it for us. It's brilliant. I mean, some things we do want to get more involved in. That's with how we prioritize different projects. But at the end of the day, we are young volunteers. We're all early in our careers as well. So the dynamic is a bit different from trustees who are maybe retired or have the luxury to be more invested in the future of the zoo and its stakeholders. So yeah.
Yes, and yeah, if you want to hear even more about like the way that it works and everything, I feel like I asked Connor all of those questions it'll be when this comes out probably a couple months ago now. So go back and listen to Connor's episode if you want the full kind of even more in-depth discussion about the technical
Professional
side.
answer.
This is how we're going to know if he's listened, is because you've said all these things like, oh, he's second, he's the second most Sui person, because I feel like that will be brought up if he has listened, we'll know.
He will, but I mean, it's a constant. That's another thing I really love about the youth board is that we are all like best friends as well, and so there's this proper sense of camaraderie, and we go for socials afterwards. After meetings, it's not just sort of bye and see you later. So it's really nice work environment since I feel really lucky to have met all these people who care as much as I do about these issues or these topics, and just seeing them, watching them work and just thinking, wow, that's amazing, I wish I could do that, or just wanting to be better, but of course they're coming from different backgrounds, and we can all then just work together but then have a laugh at Connor's expense. A common one that always comes up is the zoo always goes on that their off-show area is larger than Bristol Zoo. And they make a point of it. They've made a point of it so many times now that it's just an ongoing thing where we got a tour around it. Actually, I was thinking, this is a pretty big site. I think is it bigger than Bristol? And you just see Connor just. Yep. Just
I love that.
And so it's always like and especially I won't say that I abuse the role of chair, but I definitely would almost use that as a point of, I did ask you to do this thing, and he'd just be like, oh, be quiet. But no, we have lots of fun and we get lots of work done, and it is good.
That's fantastic. And yes, I feel like after visiting Chester, I feel like when Connor came up and visited Edinburgh, I was trying to find ways to outdo Chester at Edinburgh Zoo, because I feel like that's just a general level of competition that must go on between everyone. Is like, oh, well, we have pandas, so you guys don't have pandas, and we're the only zoo that has pandas. You also don't have koalas. We have koalas. So there's all like, so I can see how I would probably do the same. I appreciate that kind of light teasing. And I suppose something I wanted to ask about, beyond the kind of teasing of Connor, is what is your role now? What is it that you do on the board, and kind of what are some of the projects that you've been most involved in?
Yes, so I've definitely seen as I said, I've seen basically every point of view now, I feel, because when I started off on the board, I was vice chair, so I was supporting Chelsea, who was the chair at the time, who was brilliant, and I was like, I love you, Chelsea, I'll do anything for you, and she was so good at that role, and then she stepped down a year after that, in the April of 2020, and and I don't know if you can say this, but I was the only one who applied for chair, and I thought, that's a good omen. And then, and so then I've been the chair for the past year or so, which again has been for, if we're looking at personal development, has been amazing for that team management, that leadership role, project management, which is what we want. The youth board is, a tool almost that we're giving to the zoo, but also what we get in return is, it helps springboard us in our careers, because usually you don't get this opportunity to work on boards. I turned up and I was like, what are minutes? What's an agenda? What are actions? You're saying I have to do these? And so it was a steep learning curve for a lot of us, and it still is. But by having this turnover as well, where we're not just stuck in these chair positions, I'm now taking a step back as a board member so I can focus and prioritize on other areas, but then also give support and guidance for the new chair and say, well, I've been in that position. This is how I would maybe help deal with it. Because I know putting that on your CV is, could get you that interview. And it's like, oh, well, that's interesting, because people will associate those skills and competencies to that. So it's really valuable. And so projects that I've been involved in, Connor talked about it quite a bit. The Youth Symposium was definitely the highlight of our calendar. And I'm really excited that we've been given the green light to go ahead with this year's as well. And so we're starting to put things together for that. I was also part of the IUCN Youth Summit, which happened last March, I think it was. I think so. And again, Connor was running around a bit of a madman trying to sort everything out, and I was like, I'll help wherever I'm needed. And so I think from my point of view, it's just been I've had to put different hats on when I've been chair, and interacting with the trustees and subcommittees and sort of looking at where to take the youth board. So for me, seeing that progression of where we've come, even small things like we're having to extend our meeting times just because we're not able to fit all of our agenda points into a 2-hour meeting. And it's it's just really nice to see how it's maturing. We're putting together this toolkit to help other organizations set up their own youth boards, because that youth engagement and is so important at these senior levels, as I was talking about with diversity of thought. And and seeing all of that, and especially early on with our equality, diversity and inclusivity report that we put to the trustees, it was quite a defining moment, as this is no deficit to them. It wasn't what they were expecting from us. And they said, oh, okay. And we we said, well, we just think this is a barrier that's to young people, but also to everyone. It's not just that demographic that we're looking at. It's how can we improve the experience and take down those barriers so more people can be involved in conservation. And so, things, all of those projects, I think it's just an amalgamation. I've just enjoyed the journey, let's say that.
And I always take the mick out of people when they say journey, but then I'm also like, I say it so often now that I'm like, because it's the only way to describe certain things. So I appreciate that. Sorry. What were you saying?
No, I was just saying, I think last November, where we had our recruitment day, followed the next weekend by the Youth Symposium, was almost a good moment where it was everything we had led up to that point, where it was say, oh yeah, all of our hard work's paid off. And especially with the Youth Symposium, I mean, they said that it was going to be youth led, and then we got to the day and they just said, okay, off you go. And we kind of all looked at each other and we were like, it's youth led, and we're the youth. And so, and it took us a second because, we're never usually handed those reins, and it was brilliant because actually they just sort of sat back and made sure the cameras and things were working. But we were, it was the event management. We were there making sure the guests were all happy, talking to everyone, making them feel welcomed, handing out the lanyards. We were doing the tours around the zoo. I had to scramble around and get notes from everyone's in real time so I could summarize the day at the end of the day. So it wasn't as good for me because I sort of saw bits of all the workshops and everything. I never got to just sit down because I was just telling them, have you got those notes? So I could type them up. But again, that experience was... so unique, never done that before, but it was, the energy was palpable, and, I would do it all again and can't wait to.
Yes, and whenever tickets go on sale for this year's Youth Symposium, I will heavily endorse, and I will heavily endorse now as well, everybody needs to go. If you see the tickets come on sale, wait until I've bought mine, then buy yours, so I could definitely get one. But yes, I think it was fantastic, and it was, I can, even from an outside perspective, I could see you like dashing around. Whenever I spoke to you, I think it was like, well, I passed you in like a corridor while I was like nipping to the loo or something, and you were running frantically around backwards, forwards, this, that, and the next place. So I could yeah. But you did very good job at summarizing things at the end of the day. You wouldn't have known that you hadn't attended every talk. So
thank you. Yeah, well, I unfortunately, cloning isn't one of my many abilities, so I had to just go and I just had to deploy all the youth board, and I was like, please, can someone write down what happens? And then they just handed me their notes so I could type it up on my iPad, just so I had it all in one place. But yeah, I wore a turtleneck the first day and I was boiling because I was just running around everywhere. So I learned that lesson. But as I said, I really enjoyed it. It would have been nice to have sat down and watch some of... I did sometimes have to have a bit of a break and say, okay, I'm going to sit down and watch Jack and what he says about pangolins. But then it was like, okay, and then I was off again, But yeah, no, it was really fun. And then, again, with the touring around the zoo, we were just given sort of a brief fact sheet, and then I was paired with one of the youth board members, and he was like, you're the zoo tour guide, you do it. I was like, okay.
Oh no, I think I loved it. It was fantastic, and I feel like I gave so many... If you've listened to Connor's episode, I don't know, have you listened to Connor's episode where I just gave you so many compliments, or do I have to give you all the compliments again?
No, it will waste too much time. I did listen to that on the way to work.
So you know how much I appreciated it was fantastic. It was brilliant. And yes, looking forward to that. And all of the other diversity work as well. So important, so interesting. And I think, important to kind of, even if it's not what maybe was expected of you, important to highlight for everyone beyond the scope of youth is so exciting and so interesting. And I guess something that I wanted to ask you about, similar to the kind of Chester theme, and similar, I suppose, to being forced into giving tours of Chester, was I like to ask people who kind of work in collections or in zoos or have this kind of affinity for nature and education, what are the kind of underappreciated animals or underappreciated conservation stories of either Chester Zoo, or maybe the Forest School will come up, but we should probably limit to Chester or one or the other, because who knows how long we'll be here if we start doing both. But what are the kind of underappreciated conservation stories of Chester that you wish more people paid attention to when they visited?
Okay. You may have opened a can of worms here, because Connor briefly mentioned it. I'm very much an advocate for underappreciated animals. My whole dissertation was on engagement with invertebrates and people's perceptions of that. And so I've always been, amphibians, reptiles, invertebrates, fish, those are the things people need to be interested on. And so I was so happy when Connor brought up the Lake Titicaca frogs, and I was like, yes, he's learning, he's listening to me. And then he didn't know any facts, and I thought, no. And so I was I just wanted to maybe add some facts onto the Lake Titicaca frog, and then I had some other ones. I mainly highlighted a Chester Zoo species, but yeah, Lake Titicaca frog. It's got all the folds in its skin, so that it has more surface area to absorb oxygen. So although it does have functional lungs, it doesn't really use them just because it's so oxygenated, the water in Lake Titicaca. So it's got all these folds to absorb oxygen, which unfortunately gives it, that appearance. And so sometimes what it'll do almost like a push-up sort of behavior, so to get more water across its folds. So that's quite fun. But yeah, some other species around the zoo that I think deserve a lot more, are very underappreciated. So in monsoon forests, there's a whole vivarium of emerald jewel cockroach wasps, and I think they're brilliant because they're so beautiful, because they're just these iridescent, like emerald, turquoise, little insects with like copper red wings, and they just have the most grotesque behavior. They'll use cockroaches for breeding, and what they'll do is they'll inject them with the stinger just to almost zombify the cockroach, and so it shuts off the part of their brain, these toxins, for the flight response. So these cockroaches are just willing and will just do whatever the wasp wants them to do. It will then saw off its antenna and then lead it with said antenna, like a dog on a leash, to its burrow. It will put it down into the burrow, lay eggs on it, block it in. This poor paralyzed cockroach just lies there, and then the egg, once it hatched the larva, as they go through their instar, so where they molt before they get to the stage of metamorphosis, they'll eat certain parts of the cockroach, but they'll even eat it in a certain order of its organs to keep it as fresh as possible. It's the most horrendous thing. But I think it's really cool.
I think it is. I spent a long time. We have just recorded. I don't think it'll be released by the time this interview comes out. But I spent a long time. Me and Jodie recorded a London Zoo review that'll be coming out soon. Where I spent a long time detailing this process to her as well, because this is gross but amazing. This is like.
I think another one that's really tucked away is Caecilians. We've got some in the tropical realm, which, for those who don't know, it's like the third group of amphibians people don't know of. You've got your toads and you've got your frogs and toads, you've got your salamanders, and then you've got Caecilians, which look like worms, but they're very, again, very disturbing, but where these meat worms with bones in them. We just don't know much about them because they're fossorial, which means they live underground. And so because they live underground, scientists can't see them, so we just don't know. It's simple as that. They're just like, we know bits if they come up during monsoon seasons. But if you look, they've got some pictures on YouTube, on Google, of their teeth. So some species do have venomous, and it literally looks like the alien from Alien, like the little man, like it's so scary. But they're just tucked away, like by the Parsons chameleon in tropical realm, and unless they come up for breath, people just don't see them. But again, it's one of these. I just like the sort of whimsical mystery, and it's just this oddity where we can't really define it as much. I have two more. Do you want me to keep going? Like...
I want, because they've been fantastic. So I'm just sitting here in silence, being like, yes, this is fantastic. Say more. So yes, let's hear them all, because
Okay.
I'll need to, because I'll be back at Chester in November or whenever the next youth symposium ends up being. So
Yeah.
I'll be clocking these. So next time I come, I'll be like, I need to find these things. So next one, please.
Okay. I've got a fish as well. I couldn't do it without
Okay.
a fish. Tequila Split Fin, which is in the aquarium. Now, people always like, why tequila? Like, what, does it swim in the drink or something? I'm just like, no. So it's from Mexico, really endangered fish, which is one of our conservation projects we've got out there. And tequila actually is named after the volcano that's in that area. And people always like, well, where, where's the drink come from? And it's because when it erupted, it created all these fertile soil, areas. And it's really good. These soils are really great for planting blue agave, which is one of the main ingredients in tequila. So that's where it all comes from. So I just thought it was like this nice little story around, where does the name, the etymology, which is, where it derives from. Because always people say, why is that fish called tequila? And so it's a good way of having this story and linking it to this conservation project. Right, what was the last one? Oh, yes. So
it's got a lot to be. If we've just talked about tequila, I think, for the first time ever on the podcast, so it's got a lot of work to do. This last
one. As I said, my methods of engagement are unorthodox, but they work. And, I had two more. No, I'll stick with this one. So it's
okay.
This one's off show actually at the moment, but we do have a TED talk about it where it's the Achoques Salamander, which is similar to an axolotl. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. If I butchered the name, I apologize. And there's an interesting story that goes along with this one as well, where similar to axolotls, they are only found in these small areas of ponds, lakes in Mexico, and they were just going. They're really endangered due to habitat degradation, and it was almost they were. Sort of disappearing from people's culture as well. A lot of people didn't know a lot about them. And so the team was having, the zoo team was having trouble sort of how can we create this, conservation project campaign around it and get locals involved if they don't know about them. And we don't know how to breed them because locals don't know anything about them. So, where do we go? And they stumbled upon, they got sent to this church, to these nuns. And these nuns are like expert breeders of these of this species, and it's because it's they use them to make a cough medicine. And I'm not making this up. And we don't know the details of how they do it because they won't. It's like held secret, but it's like being this long remedy, this ancient remedy where they make it out of this animal with honey and lemon, and it's supposed to help with colds and sore throats. Not that it has anything to do with honey and lemon or anything. It's all to do with this animal. But anyway, the team was like, okay, but let's we got lemons, let's make lemonade. They worked with these nuns, and I think it's the first official conservation project that works with a religious group, and they learning from them their techniques, husbandry techniques on how to breed these animals have been helping to bring back numbers with their conservation. So it's really interesting story that, and as I said, there is a TED talk on it.
That's fantastic, because I feel like it's the type of thing where I would go to the nuns and be like, oh, forgive me, sister, but I'm going to have to talk to you about animal breeding, and I don't think I could bring myself to do it. I just like I think that's gonna. I'm so sorry, and this might be completely wrong. So please just send me away if this is not correct. Because it does sound like a good setup for a prank to be
Yeah.
like, go and ask the nuns about this. Go on, go and
Yeah,
ask
go
them.
do that. I can just imagine it like a little, sliding thing at the, front of the door, and they're just there like, yes, we have them. But yeah, but there's, as I said, a lot of these projects that are specifically why I'm so, motivated to engage people about these less charismatic animals, is a lot of the time you have a really quick turnover with these projects, just because they are so prolific. So as long as you actually give them that habitat and give them that chance, and actually, someone cares about them, you can bring these species back from extinction. I mean, look at the work Chester's done with Partula snails. Species were extinct in the wild. I think there were 13, and six of those 13 species went extinct. We got 50, I think, of what was considered like the last species we had, like wild specimens, and they were kind of left to it. And the head curator was asked to have a meeting about them, and he was thinking, oh no, have they all died or something? What's gone on? And it was a meeting where the other keepers were saying, we need more space for them. And that's it. And because they had gone from, I think it was a few months, from 50 to like thousands, and it was one of those projects where I think within 3 years they had a stable population. And he took me to this room, and I feel so sorry because one keeper has to spend like their whole day counting every single snail and cleaning them out. And I thought, you just go insane, because this room had like literally over 10,000 snails in it. and you would go and you'd look, and it would look like bare tanks, and then you'd peel back a palm leaf, and it would just be covered in snails, and they're all in the soil as well. And the eggs are like these tiny little pearls. And so they can't even do it quickly. They've just got to, like, meticulously, they just apparently put on music, and they just spend their whole day in this one shipping container full of snails, just counting them.
I think I'd lose my mind. It would be the type of thing where you could like 1, 2, and there's because I've seen like videos of this process at different establishments where they're just going 1, 2, and they're the tiniest little. Yeah, I conservation is hard work for anyone who wasn't convinced about this before, and it's not necessarily always exploring jungles and looking at kind of strange. Well, you're looking at strange things still. Sometimes it's a lot of counting. That's fantastic and really interesting. And I guess you did say you had one more. So I can let you. If you want to give it an honourable mention?
Snail. I sneaked it in.
I was going to say it sounded like you prepared a little bit of a.
I mean, I could go on for hours. This is just what I'm like. Like it's very much me, where there'll be literally. I'm trying to think of a good example at the zoo, where it's just like in the monsoon forest, it's like these silver gibbons are right there, and like the Bornean orangutans. And I'm just there like, but no, look at these wasps, like, and I just, because I know I'm the one person in the room and I think it's really important to be that. And I think, with conservation projects, there needs to be more of this almost. I think this is the one place where trickle down actually works, where if you look at these main flagship species, I understand how important they are. But if you're protecting that whole habitat, I think it's really important to say, and by, preserving this habitat, you're also going to have this knock-on effect, because it's a whole ecosystem. It's the food chain, food web. You're also saving, there's elephants that, they create, with their footprints, they create mini ponds almost that are habitats for certain frog species and things, things you wouldn't even think about. And so I'm always, flying the flag and in the corner for all of these things that are sort of left behind, especially since, I think they're a lot cooler, and they've got, if I always tell facts to kids, things like spiders, all the spiders in the world eat the weight of all humans every year in insects. So be glad that they eat insects. and, and they're all like, "Ah." And so I just like to make a point of, just be glad that they're little because they could take over the world if they wanted to. And it was something for my we had to give a mini teach for our science communication and zoo education module, and I did mine on classification, sort of taxonomy of invertebrates. And to start with, I sort of said, what proportion of all species do you think, like percentage, do you think are mammals? And sort of people putting their hands up at, a few at 40, 30, 20, 10. Majority was sort of like 10%. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I flipped to this pie chart where it was showing all vertebrate species made up about I think under 1%, or like it was something like 0.5% or something minuscule like that was vertebrate species. And then the rest is just like invertebrates with like 3/4 being insects. And I was like, this is what we're dealing with. But of course, with media and everything, that's where those perceptions come from. But actually, with over 1 million species and counting, insects is, where it's at. But, the entomology degrees, there's not a whole lot there, but you just think of like the, what they're calling the insect apocalypse and all of this and what's happening, but we just don't know because not enough people are documenting it, and it's more anecdotal of, before, we're talking 30, 40 years ago, where you were going through back streets with your headlights and you'd have insects covering your car, whereas that doesn't happen now. So so I'm always, long story short, I'm always that annoying person who's like, well, what about those?
Never the annoying, and especially not on this show where we try and highlight the underappreciated conservation stories. I feel like it's something that personally I would like to talk more about, because I feel like we've talked about the pangolin, which is strange and unusual, and we've talked about different things, but it's really hard to find people, as you say, who are kind of like experts or passionate about the kind of the weird and wonderful animals, the weird and wonderful kind of smaller creatures that kind of people maybe find a bit freaky or odd. Like, I think I need to focus more on them on this show. So if you ever have a passion and you think, oh, actually, I found another one, I'll just sit here in silence for an hour and go, off you go. There you go. Because it's really fascinating and it's really, really interesting. And I think it is. It's something that I think we need to refocus attention on. And it's something that whenever I go to the zoo with people or whatever it is, when I'm out for a walk and a bee buzzes by, I feel like that's my main goal, is like pointing out to friends and family, like, we can de-villainize and destigmatize these things that you see as creepy, because they're actually really important and really like strange and interesting. So really, really interesting. Fascinating.
If you need a researcher for your podcast for that, I'll do it for you. But yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. Yes, I will have to. Yeah, I'll have to. Maybe when I come down, whenever the next new symposium is, I'll go on a tour of like the mammals and big stuff one day, and then the next day I'll be like, Felix, I need you to come and I need you to show me all of the things that yesterday I'll have missed, because they're the weird stuff.
Yeah, I sort of
because that's
come
fantastic.
to the dark side, and I sort of emerge from the shadows. I'm like, yes, let's go.
Yes, fantastic. That's fascinating and fantastic. And I think before I take up any more of your time talking about these things, next time I'm sure if we ever have a next time, we can refocus on these things. But to wrap up the conversation for today, before we go down any more rabbit holes of strange, weird, and wonderful insects and things, I wanted to talk a little bit about advice, because people have kind of listened to the podcast, they've chatted away about, we've chatted away, not they've chatted away, maybe they've been talking to us and we just can't hear them. We've been chatting away about all of these different topics. And I know you said you like to give advice, you like to kind of help people kind of find their way in conservation with these things. So if someone's listening and is feeling inspired to either get into conservation or do something for maybe the weird and wonderful species, whatever it is, what would your piece of advice or pieces of advice be for them to what action should they take after listening to this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a loaded question, but a really good
Yeah.
one that's, regularly is brought up. And
Mhm.
I think sometimes people get, they don't see the forest for the trees. A lot of the time
Mhm.
you're getting, oh, good pun there, getting, they get hung up on, I want to be a zookeeper. Or I think
Mhm.
Connor mentioned this actually, where, try to keep an open mind of different positions. And
Mhm.
it's something I always tell people is anyone can be a conservationist, and
Mhm.
we should all be conservationists. It doesn't mean you've got to be out in the field planting trees or having a standoff with poachers over rhinos. It can be as simple as saying, I'm going to make this lifestyle change in my behavior.
Mhm.
I'm going to try, use more public transport. I'm going to try use more sustainable palm oil products. And
Mhm.
from that, you're doing what you can. Or, at work, I'm going to, how can we change our appliances or things to be more economically, what was it going to, eco-friendly is what I'm trying to say, or but is also going to be more economical anyway. And so that's what I always say is, how can, if it's not something that's an explicit career that you want to undertake,
Mhm.
where how can you have that in your lifestyle if you enjoy listening to the birds? You can get BirdNet, which is an app where you can record and analyze and figure out what the species are. And you can start thinking, oh well, what bird feeders can I have for my garden, what wildflowers if I want to see more butterflies, and just taking that almost as a second interest. I'd say, become, most of this, I've talked about it. I've not taken a conventional route in conservation. As
Mhm.
I've said, usually the way it goes is, once you've done your undergrad, you do your masters, you do a PhD, you're a researcher. That's how they,
Mhm.
it's all geared towards this. Or if you're doing more in-field research, you still need those sort of high education, qualifications to get that.
Mhm.
So I would say, it's always good to try new things, but almost don't settle for things. I'm always changing what I'm doing, as we've talked about. And it's because I love to research. I'm always looking
Mhm.
at what courses are available. Oh, maybe I could
Mhm.
do this. This could be brilliant for my development because I'm interested in this aspect. It's not, as you said, you've had to learn about certain conservation aspects yourself because it wasn't
Mhm.
available with your course. There is no perfect, course, even though the way that, how much they cost, you would think they would be.
Mhm.
There's no perfect course that will teach you everything you can just take that and then run with. So I think it's always growing and looking at what's out there, and for younger people, just be a bit cheeky. I think you need to just be a bit more confident. Like, I was 13
Mhm.
and I went to this world renowned aquarium, and I just said, yeah, I like fish, can I help out? And it's just like, what crazy person would do that? But what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say no. And if they say
Mhm.
no and that's it, slam door, then actually that's somewhere I don't really want to be associated with or work at. Most of the time, people are delighted and they want to help you, and they'll either say, yes, please, like, well, you can do
Mhm.
this, or unfortunately, we don't have the capacity, or because of whatever, policies,
Mhm.
but this is where you can go. And they'll always give you a starting point. And I think it's just going and asking and finding out, and, be investigating is the best way to get anything done, to get your foot in the door.
Mhm.
And just any of these opportunities, it can be, as I said, hard depending on, your personal factors, what roles you can take on. But volunteer roles, internships, if you think it's going to be beneficial, a lot of the time, a lot of my friends, while I was doing the PGCE, were doing the keeper internship at Chester Zoo. And it gave them this wealth of experience to then go and get jobs at different, collections around the country. And so, yeah, I just wouldn't be afraid to diverge from, the classic route that's sort of put forward to you, because there is no classic, one size fits all way to do things. And from all the researchers, from courses, conferences I've been to, their progression hasn't been a straight sort of, on a graph, a gradual increase. They've been all around and, have gone from doing plant biology to microbiology to, and it's just gone from all of these experiences, though, make you a more interesting, unique person who can then utilize all of those for whatever, hopefully, dream role that you fall into. So yeah, I would just say, just try things, just do it. And as I said, yeah, just make it your own. As I said, at university, I did all my assignments on things that weren't mammals or birds, and it made finding references so hard for me. and I think it was in my final exam, which was online because it was the pandemic, and I think I had lost it by that point. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it on a lion and a giraffe. and I did. And just finding the research, I was like, this is so easy. Why didn't I do this in the first place? But again, it was because that was what I was interested about. And I knew that was what was going to get me to get the most out of it. If I had done A-levels, I probably would have got rubbish marks because I wasn't passionate about it. Whereas with the BTEC, I got triple distinction because it was something I loved doing. So I would say, yeah, always follow your passion. Money will always, it's easy enough to say, but, money will follow if you are doing something that you want to do, and just find your own way.
I think that's fantastic advice. I think it's the perfect piece of advice to end on, because I think it sums up everything we've talked about so well in like a nice little capsule. And I think, yeah, fantastic. I think brilliant advice. And I hope someone will take away from that and be inspired to do something, even if it's just go and admire a jewel wasp or something strange. Like, I think we've had a great chat with and that was some great advice to close it out. It was fantastic. And yes, that kind of brings us to the end. We've been talking for a lot longer than I expected, but I think it's been an excellent chat. Who knows? I feel like maybe you've kept me talking so you can also have a two-parter like Connor got. But, well, it's fine.
Or three-parter. And see, this is where the competitive side comes in. Also, we're both educators, so you can't shut us up once you get us going.
This is the thing. It's whenever I have someone who's like a zoo educator, especially because I also can't stop talking, it becomes we just keep going and going and going. But no, it was fantastic and really, really interesting. And thank you so much for making the time to chat to me today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. No, it's been brilliant and great way to spend my afternoon. I was actually volunteering with Chester Zoo this morning at a school, but it's definitely, yeah. It's the best thing talking about conservation and animals with people. It never gets old.
Yes, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And if people want to kind of continue to learn more about either you or any of the work that you do, we've covered a lot of topics with like the forest schools and Chester Zoo and everything. So I will put links to everything down in the description for the episode. So listeners, go and click on those. Is there any links or anything specific you'd like to highlight to them in audio form, or should they just go and look at whatever I put down there?
Oh, yeah, I'm not that good where I can remember the exact URLs for certain things. I would say, yeah, Chester Zoo website is great. Also, I mean, I fall into this pit a lot as well. I mean, and I think budding naturalists, conservationists do, where it's like, I want to do tropical ecology and like look at all these interesting animals. But actually, in my age and wisdom, I'm starting to, I have a lot more appreciation and interest for native species. So websites like the Field Studies Council that provides amazing identification guides and opportunities for natural history courses in this country, I think is really important. If you're interested in forest schools, there's a Forest School Association, FSA. If you're looking at career switching or just what courses are out there or any advice, Conservation Careers is an amazing website where everything you would need to know about that sort of thing is there. And then, I mean, you can put my personal my LinkedIn or Twitter or email in the comments if anyone wants to barrage me with like mammal groups want to send me hate or something.
No, yes, I'll put all of that down there so that everyone who is interested, not nasty people who want to barrage you about your lack of appreciation for mammals.
I'll engage them. Don't worry. I'll win.
Yeah. Well, it will all be down there for everyone who wants to have a look. While you're down there, you will also be able to find all of the details for our show. So if you want to follow Pangolin Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you are, we're on there at Pangolin Podcast, as I've said. So go make sure to follow us, stay up to date with everything that's going on with all of our guests. We've had some fantastic guests recently, Felix included. We've got some more fantastic ones coming up very, very soon. So follow us on there to stay up to date with all of that. You can also subscribe to the show. We're on all of your podcast streaming services of choice, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're on them all. So make sure to subscribe to us on there. And that kind of brings us to the end. So I just want to say another massive thank you to the listeners, of course, for listening and committing to this. Maybe it will be 2-hour long episodes. Maybe it's a 2-hour long episode. Who knows? Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Thank you so much, Felix, once again, for your time. And yes, until next time, goodbye, everyone.